That's what it.
Really, I think if even like so, I have a blue light that I can look at. That's sort of helping a little bit, I guess. But I don't know what. I'll get through it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to get through it. Yeah, yeah. And by the way, we're live now,
Yeah,
Miles.
I knew you were going to hit the live button before we were ready, but
Can I
yes,
even? Am I even? Can I even sneak it anymore? I don't even know. Can you?
no,
No.
you're easy to read. All right, moving
Well,
on.
I'm. I don't know. I try to make things just kind of happen naturally. You know what I
All
mean?
right. Welcome
Did you?
everybody to another episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. My This is Miles Hall. With me, as always, is my co-host Mike D. And we've got a great episode here for you. Back from the holiday time off. New first episode of 2024. Mike, tell them what they won.
All right, guys. On this episode, we're going to welcome 2024 with two popular JDM Nissans that are now eligible for importation in the U.S. Also, we learned that the company responsible for the Slim Jim, they're Nissan fans. And then also, as part of our back alley chat, we're going to take a look at a few Nissans that were displayed recently at the Tokyo Auto Salon in Japan. So again, this is the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Stick with us. Let's do it.
Man,
Did you notice?
what? The sound volume being all over the place? What?
Was it all over the place? Or it wasn't before it was blow out your eardrums. Now it's a little
Now
bit
you dropped
more
it down to normal
calm.
receptive decibels. Yeah, that's
It,
fine.
do you think it's too low
So
now? I don't know.
it's funny on the backside. We don't talk a lot about, but how our meetings between Mike and our forever intern Ion go. But we talk about like volumes. What do we need to change? What systems do we need to upgrade? And so we've made a few adjustments on the show. We'll see if you can pick them out as we continue out through the show.
Mhm.
We've done a few upgrades, and then we've done some modifications, hopefully for the better. If they are not to your liking, make sure to give us aggressive feedback, and let us know that you do not like that. If you do enjoy them, give us soft feedback
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
enjoyable,
Aftertaste.
enjoyable feedback, good feedback, enjoyable. Bad feedback, aggressive. It's got to be. We need it at 11 the whole time.
We
So
need your inner keyboard warrior just to yell at
we
us.
need
Is
you to
that what you're saying?
get just get hostile. Maybe
Well,
threaten.
that's how you achieve things, right? You get
Yeah,
more
through
with
anger.
vinegar than
Yeah.
honey, right?
Go
Wait.
full Karen on it. I mean, go crazy. Right. But yes, welcome everybody to another episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Mike, it's been a minute. I know we take breaks from time to time, but this was we're shutting it down for the end of the year. We're going to come back, and we're coming back here. Our date for today is actually December 18th is when we're shooting this as of today.
January
So,
18th.
I mean, we're coming up almost a 3 week break period, right?
Three, actually, it's more like 4 or 5, man. We had a full month off.
Nice.
Our last episode was before Christmas, and then now
I was
I
wondering
want
why
to
I
say
was
it's more
so
like four.
relaxed.
Yeah, it's been good though. It was definitely needed. It's given us time to kind of make those improvements that you're talking about. Small, minor, but improvements nonetheless.
Yeah.
Um, I'm actually excited, man, because when you don't do one after a while, for as long as we've been doing them on routine, every 2 weeks, give or take, it's like when you don't do them after a while, you get to miss them a little bit, man. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited about this one, man.
Okay. Well, like I said, we should be getting back on the saddle and going through all our news, motorsports, and whatever the hell we think is important in the Datsun Nissan Infinity world. So we'll continue on. But for catch up, during that time period, I honestly just kind of worked on my Datsun 620 project. For those that don't know, I have a Datsun 620 that I am literally torn down, starting back up. But I added in a 300ZX V6 a VG30DE for those that know the code. So I actually took that engine and that transmission platform and put them into my Datsun 620. And for those that don't know, it's not intended to fit, so therefore, I'm having to fabricate everything. And anytime you're a trailblazer and things, it always seems to take its sweet time. But I've been wanting to do this for a really long time, and I got really far. Actually got my engine installed, got the cab on. I'm starting to cut away and fabricate and mock everything that I need to do right now. Um, Getting a lot of insight from a few other people that have done similar type of scenarios. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's Calsonic Truck Build on Facebook if you want to go and
Yeah.
check it out. Basically, I'm doing like a Calsonic livery at this time, from what I gather. So
And it's an entire Facebook page dedicated to just this build. Is that right?
yeah, people think that I made it for the public to kind of see and like and poke fun at or like give me suggestions, but the reality is I forget things a lot. So it's really more for me.
It's a
So I can be
personal
like, what the
forum.
hell did I do with that? How did this go
Yeah.
together? And it's a perfect opportunity for you to always go back and check your work. So a little building tip if you're going to ever do anything really crazy.
It's pretty clever. I mean, again, how with social media and trying to keep a history of things, it's a little challenging. But
Yeah.
when you make a page like that, it kind of just, again, it's collective
You
and it's
look like you're
prolific.
a hero preserving guidance for the future, but the reality is you're just doing it for completely selfish reasons.
Because you're going senile, is that what you're
Because we
saying?
senility is kicking in, and I'm be like, oh yeah, that's right, I did do that.
You show your grandkids, look what your grandfather did, 40 years
Yeah,
ago.
Grandpa, sure you did.
Sure, you did. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I haven't been the only one in my garage turning wrenches. You picked up a 370 for those that didn't know,
Mhm.
probably towards the end of the year, and then you bought it, and it turned out to be a jalopy. Just kidding. It actually turned out to be a great car, but you wanted to go ahead and start doing all your hot boy stuff. So
Sort
go on
of.
your hot boy madness.
Okay, so yeah, one of the things I did notice when I picked up this 370 though is that one of the front struts, it was essentially blown, man. When you hit these bad roads, you can just feel this chatter up in front, and then the steering wheel at times would just have that shakiness to it, and
You
it was
so you
the
you
signs
blew
were
out you
obvious.
blew out your you blew
It
out
came
your
as is. I was able to maybe negotiate a little bit on the deal because of it, but I knew it was going to be one of the first things I did in this car to bring it back up to where it needs to be. So what I did is I went ahead and got all four corners, shocks and struts. As I was doing the job, though, I went ahead. I had such a hard time with particular, one of the mounting hardware for the strut. And so I put something out on social media, and I had a good friend of ours out in Austin, our buddy Rodell with SPL Parts. He says, "Hey, do you have shocks and struts lined up?" I was like, "I kind of do, but talk to me. What do you got? What's going on?" He goes, "I have essentially a pristine set of Nismo 370Z shocks and struts. If you want them, man, come pick them up." And I was like, "Man, that sounds pretty damn tempting." So yeah, next day I'm up in Austin picking them up. Got them installed. Car rides so much better. I'm so happy and I'm so appreciative. So I want to give Rodell a shout out and say thank you. By the way, got some shirts. I got some for you as well. Not only was he cleaning out his garage, he was cleaning out his shirt
That's
collection.
right. Yeah,
So,
I saw Rodell. What's funny is Rodell was actually for those that live in the Austin area and you ever see Rodell, the reason why he has wrinkles on his face is because he was the actual club president for the Austin Z Club for a few years. And for those that don't respect or don't pay homage to your local Z car president or your local car club president, do that, because guess what? Those guys took years off their lives by doing that job. And yes, one of the benefits of being an ex car club president is having loads of extra shirts. So yeah, I remember when I talked to him, he's like, "Dude, I got tons of this stuff." And I was like, "Come on, pass it this
bring it
way,
on
baby."
in.
I
Bring it on
always
in.
I always keep my shirts. So
By the way, I did have a few pictures I could share with you, though. This was
oh, please,
honestly my first time doing shocks and struts on a
you put them in backwards.
370. No,
Put the front.
not no, no. call the timing off. I just got the pictures that I could though. But
Oh, okay, I got you.
honestly, man, it was a fairly straightforward job. Aside from one of these bolts kind of giving me problems, I put a torch to it and problem solved. But aside from that, I didn't know that the Nismo edition shocks and springs red. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Mhm.
So had that again, pretty straightforward. Took about 5 hours, I think,
Yeah, they
half a
make
day.
everything super easy for the new Z guys. For the Z33 and Z34 guys, comparatively to like the old guys,
Mm-hmm.
everything's so much easier.
Well, isn't that the beauty of people just learning, advancing themselves, making
Nobody's
themselves
repacking
better?
bearings anymore. It's
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh,
you don't have to tear apart the interior to reach the bolts on the upper.
strut
You don't
tower
have to.
bolts.
It's so awesome,
Yeah,
man. I'm like
that sucked.
so
Yeah.
appreciative of that, man. So one more shout out though. I do want to give out a shout out, Miles. Me and you were able to hang out just for a little bit after the new year.
Oh yeah.
You kind of hosted a kind of, hey, let's hang out with the Z guys invitation, and
Mm,
me, you, and about five others. We had a nice little run around downtown, and here's a picture of us. Actually, for those who know San Antonio, the tower, highest point of town. We had
yeah.
actually had a nice little lounge up there, so we got together, had a drink up there. It was really nice. I hadn't been able to do that with friends.
Yeah, we it was nice that we could get together with some of the local Z guys and just have that event. And it was a really cold night out, so I'm
Cold.
really thankful that for the people that actually showed up, and we had a good time. We'll have to do another one of those again one of these nights. Maybe do one in Austin or Dallas or something. So
I'm down. I'm down. Great night, man. Appreciate. I'm glad you put that together.
I might put another one of those together. We'll see how it goes. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But let's go ahead and acknowledge the folks that are on with us. It looks like Ion's on with us tonight. Right now, we'll wait for everybody else to trickle into the bar, as it were, as we move forward. But again, thanks for everyone for being here. Anything that you would like to tell us, please just post it up here in the comment section below. And of course, we'll talk about that here as the show goes on. We see you, and of course, we're going to share all those comments that we have throughout the show.
Keep them coming
Now,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Mike, you have a compie tonight.
yes, we do. Guys, let's go ahead and kick off the episode in typical fashion. First time of 2024. If you've got something in front of you, join us. Of course, we like to give a salute. For those in the Nissan family whom we wish good health, we hope you're in great health, guys. And for those who may have lost, let us be reminded of them often. Let's go ahead and say, Ganpai, guys. Join
Compie.
us. All right. Clink.
Very important first one of the year.
Mhm.
All right. So let's
Cool.
go ahead and kick it off with going into Nissan news. This is where we each scour the internet and share an article that we like regarding Nissan, Datsun, or Infinity articles. Typically, these are sourced from our the official newsrooms of Nissan, and pretty much from any other media outlet that we want to go ahead and utilize. Um, and it's our choice. So live with it. Too bad.
I like that. Thank you. Yes.
First up here, it goes. We You mentioned it earlier, Mike, but you talked about highly coveted Nissans that are
Mhm.
now above the line for importation. You want to talk about that?
We do. I do. As we kick off 2024, for those who are familiar with the U.S. importation rule, which is it's only until cars pass the 25-year mark of production that the importation rules of those cars are a little bit more relaxed in the U.S. And so you start to see them trickle in into the U.S. Popular cars that we didn't get here, or if you just want a right-hand version of said car, whatever it is, you can get them typically after the 25 years after its production. So that being said, we want to welcome the R34 Skyline and the S15 Sylvia, otherwise known as the 240SX here, into that fold. We're going to see, would say in the coming months and years, more and more of these R34s, Skylines, and Sylvias coming in. And so I thought it was a very exciting thing. Honestly, for me personally, though, these two cars are essentially two of my favorites. Now, I know they're going to be, let's just talk about it though, they're going to be expensive. they're just going to be expensive, man.
Yeah.
Um, so the drive.com has two really good articles, which we're sharing here tonight, though. The first one that you're looking at right now is the R34 Skyline. The let's just talk about the R32 Skyline, even where a lot of this importation began. Pricing was kind of unknown. We're kind of not knowing where we were. Fast forward 10 years now, the R34 Skyline, the markets on Skylines it's pretty much set. So what what is being predicted about a GTR edition Skyline is close to $200,000 for
God
I
damn.
know a mint pristine example of a GTR Skyline R34. It's six digits for sure, man. Well over 100,000. They're saying tipping 200.
It was always
Uh,
going to be, it's if anything, the importation's just going to be pushing that further. That all it is going to raise that. It's going to, I mean, it. There's nothing ever that's going to be now's a good time to buy your R34. It's going to be like this,
it's
just
going to be.
constantly. It's the price of gold. It's
I
just
don't.
gonna. It's never gonna dip.
I don't see it dipping anytime soon, especially these men. And up until now, if you were in the U.S. and you see an R34 Skyline on public roads, it's one of two exceptions that you are most common. One was
Stolen. Just
well,
getting.
well, it had to get here at some point first, right? And of course, for those who know, there was a time when we might call the Motor X cars. There was a time where there was a company called Motor X that had were able to facilitate and work with the government with having a few of these come in. What would you say, early 2000s?
Yeah,
Pretty
I don't
much.
know which models they were specifically doing, but
Right. It was primarily R32,
32s. Yeah.
R33, some 34s. That whole story was short lived. So you did have some. Other versions have typically been versions which the government essentially allow. They have to display a specific technological advancement. It's nuts. Essentially, they have to be a museum piece to even be allowed in the U.S. up until now. So now it's sort of like, hey, well, they're here. They're going to be expensive, but it should be okay. I should mention though, I looked at non-GTR Skylines R34.
Mhm.
Honestly, if you're okay with maybe an automatic, naturally aspirated, or something like that, just not the GTR. I've seen some for as low as still $30,000. 30,000 for a base Skyline, essentially.
Yeah, that's
So
still not bad.
it's not too bad. Now, if you want something more affordable, let's get into the second car. That's the S15 240SX Sylvia. Right-hand drive. To me, this was probably the most well, I guess maybe because it was sought after, though. It was in the styling. I do like the headlights. The tail lights are interesting. I've always kind of had a fascination with them. You don't see them very often. Their production numbers, even in Japan, were pretty low. I think they said about 43,000 examples between 99 and '02. I think is which that's the build number of years that they had built this car. So um, these examples, from what I've seen, have gone from they start at the high teens, and if you want a really good example, you're looking at mid 30s. That's to say, there's going to be probably taxes on top, special fees. It depends on what kind of deal you can find, but more affordable. But it's still going to be pricey. It's not going to be cheap though. So we'll see. These two cars, though, there was another article which kind of made a really interesting statement, and I kind of agree with it, though. But the R34 Skyline and the S15 Sylvia, they kind of put the cap on what you might call the golden era of JDM Nissans, at least, because anything past 1999 or 2002 really we got them here in the U.S. I mean, we got the 350Z. We had other versions of cars, but these two cars specifically, we didn't get these in the States. So I guess what we call the golden era in many ways of the Nissan sports cars. So, but I'm very appreciative. I'm glad these things are going to be on the road. I can't wait to see them on the road. It's going to take some time still. It's slow trickling in, but they're on the way. So if you guys are interested, there are a ton of importation companies that can make this happen for you. Just be prepared financially. Just don't make as much as your heart might want them. Just make the right decision. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I will say that, it's funny, like my time in Japan, just, when we were there, I saw more. I definitely saw a ridiculous amount of Skyline R32s, R33s a few, R34s a few, but S15s was like the one thing that I didn't see a lot of when I was there. I saw one the entire time, and I was looking for them.
Yeah,
And this is like me, Daikoko Futu, like everything. I mean, we hit
yeah,
everywhere, and I only saw freaking one
one.
S15 the entire time. I've seen one outside of captivity. That's outside of Japan as a joke. In the U.S., I mean, that was it, and that's all. I mean, I don't know why. They just seem extremely rare.
Now
So
I will say I've seen half an S15 because we know that the front end
I've seen a
conversions,
lot of clips back in
front
the day when
clips.
you back in the day when you could buy clips. You could buy,
A pillar
Nissan,
forward,
you could buy
right?
clips back in the day, and it was extremely popular when people were buying them to do the conversions. But somebody had to mess it up for everybody and decided to just weld two frame rails together, and the car fell apart on I think it was a California highway, caused a massive accident, and then they said you can no longer sell front clips because Americans are dumb, and apparently welded frame to frame, and the welds broke, probably with some Harbor Freight welder, and then it separated on the highway, and then that was it. That's a true story. So,
Really?
yeah.
I believe it. I believe it, man.
And Alan LaFrance chimed in here. He goes, what dictates that? Testing and evaluation or display import, limited in annual miles to something really low, and other restrictions. A lot of information in there. I'm assuming those are the vast majority, the vast criteria of what he's talking about. What kind of sets the pricing for that stuff? And he posted here in Japan, the spec R's are 30,000 for anything worth owning,
That's
which
the. I think he's referring to the S15 Sylvia as well. I mean, yeah, that's that high end on a S15
oh, I wonder
30s.
with
So,
importation everything out the door. I wonder what that'll kind of run you nowadays. And honestly, that's not horrible.
it's not
I mean,
compared to R34. Yeah, it's not horrible at all. If you buy five, what was it, five,
calm
six.
down. Don't do the math. It'll just hurt your brain. The cheapest ones are the Varietas. Funny enough, yeah. The Autex are easy to find for people okay with a decent NA motor. What's funny is I know a few people that are hiding their R32s and R33s. I'm not dropping any names here, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them are Altex.
Mm,
They're just kind of sitting on them because they're still waiting for their time period to kind of hit.
yeah,
Because I've walked into their garages and they're like, "Whoa!" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Why is that here?" And they're like, "I was waiting for the time because I didn't want any problems." I was like, "Okay," but that's true.
yeah.
So
Well, before we move on, the question I have for you though is, if it meant being more affordable, would you be okay with driving a one of these cars that were the naturally aspirated? Maybe not the top of the line. Like, how low are you willing to go? Like in terms of price, in terms of
I don't know
would
what it's
you drive an
about. I think
automatic?
I think you're thinking the wrong way. If you own this car, you're not how low am I willing to go? It's like how high is your ceiling that you're willing to go. And the other
That's
thing
true.
too is like R32 is great car, but at the end of the day it's like they are prone to rust spots in a few areas, strut towers and a few other spots, and you're just going to have to deal with that. And it's surprising that I never thought that there'd be as much support as there is for like the R32 sheet metal. You can buy the strut tower replacements now, whereas for a long time period, that was it. You were done. You'd have to just fab your own and then
Mm-hmm.
go that route. It was just an impossible thing to get. But now there's guys making replacement sheet metal for stuff like that. I mean, few and far between, but it's out there. There's a ridiculous amount of aftermarket part usage
Mm-hmm.
for or part availability for that model, because I mean, I don't know. It's just as far as to go back to your question, what I was always looking for, my ceiling was about 16,000
I
for
remember
what I
that.
wanted, and all I wanted was just an R32 non GTR, non four door,
Hmm.
and non drift missile. Just kind of all pieced, just as stock as I can have it, and that's pretty much the way I was going to keep it. But the pricing kind of jumped on them, so they're probably sitting closer to what I want is about 26,000 now. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
and that's why I
the
kind of gave up on the dream. So
that was kind of a thing too, because you got to think about it. The R32 was first allowed into the U.S. 10 years ago,
yeah.
2014. It's crazy to think it's been 10 years since the R32 has been allowed in the U.S. And I remember there being such an anticipation of the R32 because it was sort of the first, at least for our generation or of people, to want that R32, the first Skyline. That's not the first Skyline, but it's
Well, the
the first
R31 was
popular.
people
I
weren't
think it was.
importing the R31 either, and that was a bad ride. It still is a bad ride
Still
for
is.
those that don't know. And
It
then
wasn't mainstream popular, you
it
might
wasn't
say.
mainstream.
It wasn't
It was a
Godzilla. There's only one Godzilla. You
it
know what I
was
mean?
still Godzilla.
Think
Yeah,
so?
totally. I mean, it was an amazing machine at it, but I don't know why. I guess for whatever reason, like those didn't they didn't come over that I didn't see a lot of those importing. I guess maybe it's all about demand. I suppose the R32s just kind of shot up at a certain point, but
Hmm.
for I mean, you would go to Japan at a certain time period and you would see gray R32s like in a line because they just
Hmm.
pumped out a ridiculous amount of those cars in that color, and then that was it. And so
Hmm.
when you saw importing, if you paid attention, like I'm talking like early eBay, you would see those cars up for sale, or auctioneers would have those for sale. And
Hmm.
then it was all the same the same vehicles and same, and you didn't kind of know what you were getting. It was still very much like a buyer's market. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, like I would say post Fast and Furious, it started even Fast and Furious, it really didn't launch that R32 up. That really didn't happen
Hmm.
probably for about another 4 to 5 years. And I think once uh Grant was it the simulator? Oh my god,
Gran
massive.
Turismo?
Yeah, Gran Turismo came out.
Hmm.
That's when the fame I think really rose. All the import DVDs, all the import magazines were pushing it,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
they just started shooting up shortly after that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's about the time when the clips and everything started ending and so forth. But Alan chiming in hard
Yes.
here tonight. He goes, R32 GTS Ts used to be
Hmm.
$2,000 to $5,000 all day in Japan,
That's
which I would agree all
that.
day.
That would be the version I grab. I'm too like it gets. You're still in an exclusive club if you have an R32 Skyline in general,
Yeah,
even if
and
it is
it's
a
funny that
R.
that's what I was hunting for back in the day, and you could
Mhm.
buy them imported for like 16, 17,000. Now it's closer to 22, 23, and sometimes you just buy like you're buying them, and sometimes it's an old car. It is
Mhm.
what it is. We're talking about a car that's what 30 years now, plus
35. Well, I mean, 25
35.
plus 10,
That's
35-year-old car,
and
man.
you know, I mean, maybe you're lucky if those engines saw servicing while they were in Japan. Maybe if you're lucky. And so it's all gambling. You know, you're buying a $22,000 car with a bad busted engine, but
Mhm.
you might get lucky and you can buy cores and stuff from and rebuild engines from vendors and stuff. So, but anyway, I don't want to nerd out too much on it, but um,
Gotcha.
Alan also chimed in one last time. And he goes, retro wasn't in at that time. It took time for that iconic 80s look to go from old to nostalgic.
I think
And
you're
yeah,
referring
the
to the
R31,
R31. Yep.
people did not like the R31 when we're talking like late 90s, early
Yeah.
2000s. People were not feeling that because it
Yeah.
was like, you know, like the first generation MR2 wasn't popular with the tuner crowd yet. You know, people were just biting on Civics and everything else at that time.
Bubble
A-
era,
and
rounded.
yeah,
These
yeah,
older ones are much more
the pop-up
angular. Yeah.
headlights was ew, like, and then all people didn't respect them until later on. And then yeah, the R31 it's pretty baller if you get into it. Z31s, you know, your
Yeah.
first generation 300ZX, I mean, people were not biting on those cars for a really long time in
Hmm.
popular mass popularity. It
Hmm.
took a while, you know. So
I
anyway,
think if you find an R31, if you find like one of those super silhouette racer, the
oh
big, almost like you're not gonna find a body. I mean, but if you did, man, when you
yeah,
see one, because they were out there,
the Paul
Group
Newman
B
push
racers,
ones, yeah.
oh man, they look so good. Oh
They
man.
good. They look good. I mean, in that livery with even the red and the gold and the black. Oh yeah, it looks good. So anyway, all right, but
Let's move
yeah,
on.
we can nerd out on some stuff, but yeah. But moving along here. So, in most recent news, there's been a bit of uh, a loss, if you will, in the Slim Jim world. And normally we don't cover a lot of Slim Jim related news here on the Nissan Nerd podcast, but
Slim
in
Jim.
today's
For those who
episode,
don't, just to make sure, Slim Jims are the snack. That's the beef jerky.
mhm,
That making sure. Making sure. Would you call it beef jerky for real though? Would you call
so
it? Okay.
taking back control of my article. So, in recent news, Slim Jim, the meat preservative company, um, did suffer a bit of a loss. They actually, for those that don't know, owned and made a Slim Jim Z. As you can see behind me, it was adorned with Slim Jim logos, fire, and sadly, no Macho Man references. But it did actually have a huge following on Instagram and things like that. So the vehicle ended up being stolen. So it actually got stolen in California. It was lost for a number of months, maybe, and then
Mhm.
it was then recovered in Chicago. Chicago Police Department recovered it, and they said surprisingly, not much was taken. People just decided to take off the wrap, and they were trying to take off the wrap, and that was how it was basically recovered. As you can see behind me,
Huh.
that was how it
Okay.
was recovered. But this isn't the full story. From this point, Slim Jim apparently got a ridiculous amount of hits and bump in their online activity that they said, you know what? They were already Nissan fans to begin with, but they said, you know what? There's something going on with making these Slim Jim cars. So they didn't know that they were going to get this vehicle back recovered. So they decided to say, they started to create a contest to come up with another Slim Jim replacement unit. And they voted on actually a GTR. So
Hmm.
the release date for the Slim Jim GTR was actually supposed to be yesterday, but it did not happen. They left our Slim Jim in the cold. So no new
Ah.
Slim Jim news because I would have had it for you. But when it does come, maybe we'll throw up some Slim Jim GTR news, which is a weird thing I never think I'd say. But needless to say, both the Z was recovered in almost its full state with only minor concerns. And the good news is Slim Jim is actually going to be making a Slim Jim GTR. So that is your kind of takeaway. Now, as far as the name is concerned of what the Slim Jim GTR, because that's not actually going to be the name, Slim Jim is going to host a contest. I don't think they've actually decided an award. They've awarded a name from the contestant, the submissions, but
Mhm.
it's supposedly going to be coming soon. So once the information drop, we'll try to let you know how that all worked out. But yeah, it was recovered, and that was actually it was just kind of funny that it was
I,
just
I I think it's crazy, man. I mean, the car is it's a brand new car. I mean, how it was
it was a brand
stolen
new Z. Yeah.
is beyond me. And but it was such a thing where I think the way which Slim Jim was using social media at first it was like, hey, help us. But then it became somewhat of a marketing campaign where they're like, not only help us, but like, you know what, we're gonna go when they stayed with Nissan. Like that's
Right.
cool too. Like someone inside Slim Jim is a Nissan fan at heart, and we got to figure out who this guy is. We got to talk to him. We got to figure out why the Slim Jim Z or the GTR is not at events. Even like that would be a cool thing. How cool would it be to have Slim Jim sponsor a Nissan event? Like they got the car. I mean, what are they really spending? Like this
Well, I will
all
say
up.
this though: the Slim Jim Z before it was taken was actually showed up on a couple of wrestling events.
Oh.
It showed up at, at a couple of wrestling events, but it actually had a little film debut as a backdrop in a couple of wrestling shows, I guess if that's what you want to call it, or the wrestling
Uh-huh.
programs
Yeah.
before it was taken. From that point, is a lot of wrestlers were joking that they stole the Z
Hmm.
as a joke, like, "Hey, I stole it," like different
Ah.
wrestlers were saying that, and of course they had nothing to do with it, but it was just an ongoing like joke. So that kind of only added to a little bit of the raging fire of popularity with the Slim Jim Z getting stolen. Now I'm curious if the GTR is stolen, if it's just one of these popular things for them to steal the Slim Jim's car and just return it or whatever, but we'll see how it goes. But needless to say, Macho Man would be super happy that the Slim Jim Z was
Uh,
recovered. Yeah.
I am. I'm
Oh yeah.
surprised that we haven't yet done a Macho Man impersonation on this one. Be like,
Oh
"Let me
no.
tell you
That's
what
a
I'm going to do with all
you
the
know I
non-Nissan
if I
motor."
wasn't sick recovering from a flu like scenario, I would do the best Macho Man for you. But I'll do it on when we do the GTR. I promise you.
Okay, okay, I'm gonna hold you to that one. When
You
you
hold me to it.
see the GTR Slim Jim GTR, we're gonna do some Macho Man
All right.
impersonations. Sounds
So
good to
we
me.
also got some more news. We've got one more article to cover here for you. This one's going to be a little lengthy, and we're going to nerd out a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about EVs,
Mhm.
and either the declining state of EVs or the rise from the grave EV story that we're going to load on for you right now. But Mike's got the article. Tell us what we won, Mike.
Let's go for it, man. So, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is that in the last couple of months, I had seen a number of automotive articles talk about something, and then I began to wonder how this relates to Nissan, and I'll get into that in just a second, though. But I will share my screen. Here are a few snippets of those articles. And it does pertain to EVs. So, in this case, what we're seeing is that over the past few months, major automotive manufacturers such as General Motors, Ford, Toyota, they are moving back on their stance for EV. And not only that, is that we're seeing essentially a shift back to hybrid technology, which is essentially half ICE engine and a half EV modification. So you've got um, numerous pros and cons. It's not really about that though. But what there's some that things that we're seeing here is that GM is no longer providing target dates for production of EV. We're showing that Ford is actually delaying about $12 billion in EV spending. And then also, we've seen through other manufacturers is that production of EV cars have been reduced by as much as half of what its current production is. So I started to think a couple of things. One is, why is this happening? And then, we know Nissan here in the U.S. for being solely their efforts being in EV. If you don't know this, Nissan or Infiniti, they don't have hybrids. They haven't had a hybrid since 2018, and that was the Infiniti Q50 hybrid. That was discontinued in 2018. So for over the last 5 years, there is no hybrid in the Nissan lineup. So I look at this trend, and then I'm asking myself, like, how is this going to pertain to Nissan? Are there going to be any changes? So um, about these changes, there is actually one article that was specifically talking about Nissan, by the way. Nissan is saying that there are two models that they're planning to produce that have been delayed by up to a year. This was out of their Mississippi plant. It was supposed to be a one Nissan version sedan and then one Infiniti sedan. And these production dates have been pushed by as much as a year on average. The main thing is that there was a comment saying that the reason for all of these delays, um, it says here that Nissan has concerns about the profitability and market demand for EVs. The Japanese automaker cited the need to enhance product competitiveness for its latest delay. This was through a source. I don't want to say it's official. It was sort of what they say, one source, not disclosed on this though. So again, I think what I'm seeing through all of this is that a lot of the manufacturers are keeping with their promises. They told us years ago their plans for EV, and they followed through to a majority of their promises. And what I think I'm seeing now is that a lot of these EVs are on the dealership lots way longer than they were expected. The consumer adoption of EV hasn't really been what it's been anticipated to be. I'll give you a few examples though. They were saying that as of last year, the target EV supply was supposed to be 30 to 45 days. What they mean by that 30 to 45 days is number of days which that EV, that vehicle, is on the lot before it's sold. 30 to 45 days. The current average for most EVs right now is about 113 days from the moment it arrives on a dealership lot to that time that it's sold. Which is a huge, it's concerning. That's the concerning part. That's the reason behind the concerns over market demand. So, um,
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot that kind of plays into that, I would think, and that's just to kind of touch on the point here, Mike.
mhm,
The average pricing paid for EVs, and we're just talking standard EVs in the market, last year was close to $65,000, which was, the average EV vehicle. I'm talking other manufacturers.
mhm.
Slowly, those prices fell
Yeah.
throughout the year. I think the average pricing right now is just peaking over $50,000 for your standard EV model vehicle right now, and
And,
that was from last year
yeah.
to now.
And that was kind of, and the reason why I was thinking about mentioning this article is, and you were mentioning one of them is, what are the barriers behind the delay of market adoption of EV? Why aren't EVs selling like they wanted to? You touched on one of them, which is price. That's a very very high cost of entry into EV. Now previously, the Leaf wasn't very expensive. In fact, there was also tax incentives that you would get because of the production. But as we've mentioned in most recent episodes, is that the the Leaf is essentially being phased out, and the Aria is being essentially put the spotlight on the Aria more, and then also production of the Leaf is, I think, leaving the U.S., so there's no longer a tax incentive for it. So cost is, I think, one of the barriers which is causing this delay in market adoption, consumer adoption, I guess, of this. Um, I think a lot of the other reasons why um, consumers aren't buying into EV yet is that the infrastructure is not exactly there yet. It's on its way. It has, there's always been a huge progressive thing, but you get range anxiety, the infrastructure, being able to where to charge these things. Are there a number of ports around town? And then also the amount of time it takes to charge to charge these cars. I think there's just a lot of growing pains that are scaring consumers. So
Well, that I
I
mean,
think,
you're looking at the end user, but you also understand when a model is going to be dropped into a market, you have to also take into account what the market looks like when that vehicle is being dropped into the world that it's going to try to be consumed in. So we're dealing with massive amounts of inflation that's going on right now.
yeah.
And not just on that's hurting the end consumer, but also the manufacturer. Everything from pricing of materials that go into these EVs that are
Mhm.
all specialized, the price has increased for those, and they're having to drop their price points on these vehicles down to sell. So obviously, that's a huge punch in the gut to
Mhm.
profitability for these units. So it's like, why are we breaking our backs to make these units that the government's asking us to make it? These people said that they
Yeah.
want them, but now all these people are in a completely different environment, as
Yeah.
far as what's happening with the world that they live in right now. That's one piece of it too. The other thing to consider is and you've seen it if you haven't been paying attention. I mean, there's people on the show that can also comment. We've all driven past, uh, and this is where ours are, but like you've driven past the local Costco, and there's like six charging ports that are there, and there's 20 cars for these limited number of charging ports. And you
Hmm.
see that everywhere. You know, you go, if you, heaven forbid, you live in an apartment complex and they have two charging stations, and there's 12 of you that have vehicles. Now you all have to like fight for getting there to the apartment first day, you know, to charge your damn car, or you buy the at home charging. Now it means you got to buy the garage. You don't have a fixed home. And that's another problem with owning these vehicles. You have to have a home base location to charge. It's the only way that vehicle really kind of survives with usability as you as a
And,
consumer. You
and
know, unless you're doing it at work and you got the hookup like that. But
I,
let's be real here. You know, at the end of the day, not a lot of people, especially people younger, are owning homes right now. Homes are tougher to buy than they ever have been. There's actually a housing there's a huge
shortage.
housing shortage right now. So a lot of people are renting, you know, and sometimes they don't let you do that at your renting facility. Sometimes, you know, the apartment complex will only do what they provide, and that's it. You just have to kind of live with that scenario. That's one thing to also consider too as well. I'm just talking about the end consumer, but
I,
the other thing too, and this is a huge thing that in my mind, what I believe is these vehicles aren't old enough for people to have enough confidence in them to buy them secondhand as well.
yeah.
And I know we're talking about new purchases as well, but that's really extremely important when you're talking about new technology. When 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 people that maybe can't afford a 55 or $60,000 EV vehicle, they're like, you know what? I'll pick one up, but I'm looking at picking one up secondhand. Do people have enough trust in buying I want to call it a 3-year old EV vehicle when they know
Hmm.
when they don't necessarily know what the cost of servicing on that vehicle is. Right
Yeah.
now, if I give you a 3-year old gas powered vehicle, you can pretty much guess or speculate within good reason of how much that
Yeah.
car is going to cost you for servicing, for brakes, oil changes, tires, standard maintenance, and the occasional weird X factor that kind of hits you.
Hmm.
With these vehicles, I think a lot of people are so new to it that they keep thinking they hear those horror stories where
The horror
I'm going to
stories. Yeah.
have a $26,000 battery that needs to be replaced. I can't afford that. And what have I gotten myself into? Now I'm in the poorhouse for a $50,000 vehicle for a vehicle that I can't use. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I think that's why these concerns is a motivator behind other manufacturers resorting back to hybrid, because I think hybrid technology has been around longer. I mean, I think the first Prius was 2000, as opposed to maybe an EV, which was 2010 on the current. But also, hybrid vehicles. They do have they give you that range anxiety is not there. They're still very efficient. That's where the motor is charging the battery as opposed to
Correct.
plugging something in. So essentially you're putting fuel in a generator
I,
in
I
some
and
cases.
I think maybe we're just in a situation where it's too fast, too soon.
And that's that growing
And I
pains.
think
This is this
and I
yeah.
can tell you right now, and I know this, if I know all these manufacturers, a lot of these guys have technology that's 10 years advanced right now that they got sitting on the shelves, and they're
Mhm.
barely rolling some of this stuff out, but it's a
Yeah.
matter of like cost and getting it to market. But
Mhm.
I mean, the other thing too is we have these great pieces of technology that all these manufacturers have sitting on shelves, but
Mhm.
I mean, everything that they're held back for restrictions. You know, the government puts their restrictions in place, and then or they give their incentives, and they start steering things in a particular way, and the auto manufacturers are going fine. We'll go ahead and lean towards that, and now all of them are getting this big punch in the wallet that like, hey, we did what you asked us to do, but people just don't want to buy these things. And you know, the governments, they'll give their I mean, the incentives right now, from what I can recall, are pretty limited for buying EV. They
Uh-huh.
were, I mean, and during, and I'm not going to go into a particular right or left, but during a particular presidency, they seem to be at an all-time high. At another particular presidency, they seem to be at a particularly not
Interesting.
necessarily higher rate. And I again, I could care less on political stance.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mostly care about what the market's doing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a
I
lot of things that go into this equation. It's not just a simple, you
it's
know.
it, and it's not right. It's there's many factors into it. It's no one company's fault or anything like that. I think how you said, I think inflate for things to become easier for EV adoption would be inflation needs to cool. I think pricing needs to become lower, and or even for that fact, financing. That's another one. That's part of the inflation factor too. And I think consumers need to gain confidence, and I think in EV for long terms a period, specifically as a pre-owned, because it's only until they see it that they'll actually begin to believe in it more and know that it's reliable.
I would agree.
And the only way to solve that, I think, is time. Or companies need to do a better job of making those success stories known as opposed to the nightmare stories as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, yeah, and Ion just chimed in here. He says road tripping in an EV is hard, and he's using the word hard. I'm going to use a different word that starts with an S and ends with a K, but it definitely it stinks, and
Yeah,
that's me using a watered down version of that, because the current recharging capabilities, and I'll say it like this. We're here in Texas, no surprise. But to make it across Texas is a pretty long trip. It's a big, massive state. And our gas stations right now may have a charging station, but the charging time period
yeah,
that I'm sitting at that gas station is redonkulous. That's assuming I'm the first guy there. I get to that charging port, I plug in,
yeah.
now it's just me and the weird cash register guy for 2 hours. And I'm going to tell you right now, gas stations in the United States, especially in Texas, are set up for three things: get your gas, drop off your personal fluids, and then pick up your next round of fluids that are going into your body. And that's pretty much it. That's it. You're in, you're out,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
now it's like these gas stations aren't set up to
You don't
have
have
you hang.
movie theaters inside
Hey,
gas
you
stations. You know
don't
what I
want to
mean?
hang outside of a gas station for 2 hours. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
say it right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Yep. No, I agree. I think, and to kind of, um, I think a lot of these problems that we're seeing, will Nissan is actually tapped to solve a lot of them already. And I think one of the big solutions that we're going to see of this is Nissan's production of the solid state battery. We've talked about it before. There are so many benefits about it, including faster charge times, longer range, cheaper costs. It's more lightweight, but we have to wait. The current prediction for production of Nissan's solid state battery isn't until 2028. So we've got some time until we see some of those. But until then, we're still 100% with the current battery offering, which is the lithium ion battery. But
yeah, it's
yeah, this
crazy because
is.
like Tesla's rushing to market with these charging stations, and they need to. I mean, they need to
Mhm,
be made available. But what's crazy if you think about it, they're making money selling these people a car.
mhm,
Then they don't have any aftermarket competition because they're all these poor people that wreck their cars that need parts and servicing have to buy them straight from the manufacturer because no aftermarket vendors have come out with anything just yet because you're a slave to whatever the damn price is going to be at the dealership, which I can tell you right now is
mhm.
pretty damn astounding as a person that pays those bills and reviews those bills all day.
Yeah.
And then you're paying a charging station that's owned by Tesla, that money's going back in their pocket. I mean, it's insane how
Yeah.
you win 3 times, brother. It's just like it's crazy. Like I don't know, to
Yeah.
me, and it's just like I like to feel like I purchased something, I can have pride in it, but I don't want to
Mhm.
feel like I'm a slave to it. Does that make sense?
Hmm. That makes sense. It does make sense. I think a lot of these problems we're going to see solved, and or whatever anxiety we have about them, they're going to be calmed over time. But it is going to take time. I think the problems, the types of problems we're having, they're not new. I mean, actually, Alan made a really good point too here. He said that early gas vehicles had the same problems for the first few decades before it got better in terms of even highway system.
Yeah.
That's how
You
long
know what's
that was.
you know it's funny. You want to know what the number one serviceable, most serviced item on the Ford Model T was? The
I don't know.
rims, because they would bend up all the time.
They were wood, weren't they?
They would break up.
Yeah,
That was it.
yeah,
So they constantly had to buy. Apparently, there was like a huge like people wanted the tires, for a while. So there was like it led to like people, other companies that were making rims
yeah.
for the Ford Model T for a while.
Yeah,
It's
that
nuts.
is actually part of our
Yeah,
other podcast, the Ford Fanatic podcast. That is on
Ford fanatic.
Thursday or Wednesday. So
Woodwheel aficionado.
I got one more question before we move on, though, Miles.
Yeah, go
Though,
for it.
in
So
terms of Nissan, though, again, we know that they are committed to EV. I don't think there's no changing that. However,
yeah.
do you think that Nissan will dip back into hybrid territory in addition to EV if
I
this
don't see
trend
why they would. I
continues?
mean, I can't see them, for them to take a step back and step into hybrid.
Hmm.
It's extremely cost effective comparatively to other companies that are having to do that step
Hmm.
forward. I mean, if you think about it, they would just have to come out with another model, rebadge it. In my mind,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
put out another variation of the Leaf, same engine, same everything, just
Yeah.
like we did with the Z. I hate to say it,
Yeah.
and then just rebadge that sucker, and then just make it available for the market. And if they sell, great, sell them till you can't sell them anymore, and
It's a
then wait for the market to catch up. I really think that the EVs, it's not, it's not if it's going to ever happen. It's going to be an eventuality. It's just
mhm.
trying to measure out the what the fill of the pool is for when that's going to drop.
Yeah.
So
And
just my
I
two cents.
good point. Good point. I should mention though too that Nissan and hybrids are still not strangers. It's only in the U.S. that we don't see hybrids. There are other countries with Nissan
Yeah.
hybrids, but again, I think a lot of these. I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
We're talking about the
they have
U.S.
to meet measurements for every country that they sell in.
And
So
that's sort of why EVs exist because there were government mandates that either came up or the company was trying to be proactive to satisfy cultural paradigm shifts. And they're actually putting their money where their mouth is, and then they can't sell. Like, what is going on? So
yeah, and it's
yeah,
nothing to their fault. I mean, they've made great product. It's not a product
yeah,
concern. Their products are quality, and they're killing it in that regard. But what the issue is, it's like people just aren't freaking buying
it's
the
they got to
cars.
buy them. It's up to us now.
It's the market. It's not
Yeah,
them. Anything that they're doing with it. So if anything, they're challenging with one of the better EVs that are going to be on the market that they're bringing to market right now. So,
yep.
Alan had one more piece. It goes, Nissan has to do EV or hybrid to offset the fleet emissions for CAF, with the Leaf going away. Yeah.
That was
So
yes with Alan.
it's
That's all.
true,
Yeah.
and that's what. So we know that, and that's why we were saying like they got to come up with something, or um, reskin a leaf in some capacity. So in some way, that's a possibility.
I think if there are any changes, I think they're still going to have to wait it out. I think they're still waiting it out. Things will be a little bit stickier
It's
before they
definitely
start making
stormy
a
weather
decision.
right now. So
But
that's
yeah,
how it goes.
for sure. That wraps up our news segment. I know that motorsports is typically what we got next. We've got a few. Again, it is the beginning of 2024. Yet we do have some news, motorsports results for you guys. And so, of course, this is where we look into Nissan's current motorsports portfolio, race entries, teams they support, and in some of our cases that you'll see here, grassroots Nissan racing efforts that we personally like to cover. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and do. The first one, Miles, you have that is Nissan Challenge Series. Is that right?
Yeah. So typically we cover the Nissan Challenge. This is a going to give you some stats here for 2023. The series just ended right before we actually had finished up our last episode for 2023, so we didn't get an opportunity to report on the last round for the Nissan Challenge Series. But we're going to go ahead and give those results now. And then, of course, we've got some additional news that's coming out. So the 2023 season standing for the Nissan Challenge had their last race, which was round 8 on December 16th. That was at Button Willow Raceway. And of course, they do a 4-class system. I'm going to go ahead and just run through some of the results from that. Let me see here. We had Charles Parks was in first for Class One, and second was Michael D. Gilimi. Oh my God, D. Gilmy in a G37 coming in second. Looked like they were a little thin on participants for that series, so it was only 2 participants for Class One.
Okay.
For Class Two, that was going to be Brian Hendricks in first place. Second place was Jordan Perez and uh, Yan Zhao in third place. Class 3, excuse me, I apologize. Class 3, let's see here, we had Stephen Barker was in first place in his Z34. Second place, Adam Zia in his Z33. And third place, we had Daniel Park in his Z34. Man, Z's dominating Class 3.
Ooh,
Class 4, the final class, that was first place was Brian Abad in his B14 Sentra.
there you
Nice.
go.
Second place, we had Vaughn Navaska in his B13. And then in
Mhm.
third place is Sandy Isaac in an S30. Nice.
Oh, nice. A lot of those names sound familiar. I think you've got a lot
I
of
think they're repetitive.
repetitive. It's good. Yeah,
I
I
will say
mean
they had a
consistency.
ridiculous amount of entries. Like so, Class One, last year had something like 18 entries. Class Two, 16, and
Mhm.
Class 13, 27 entries, and
Yeah,
then Class Four, 22 entries.
yeah.
20 23 if we count Edgar Furman, which I don't. But yeah, I mean that's how that was a lot of entries, for that much activity for a Nissan Challenge series, and they're it's only getting bigger. I mean, this event is getting bigger and it's generating a lot of momentum and a popularity. So huge shout out to those guys for everything that they do for putting that get together and keeping that organizing that event and setting it up for next year. Now, I did want to comment here that let me see here that Edgar had chimed in with an update on the website. He
Mm.
said, and Michael, throw it up here in the background, the 2024 schedule. And he wanted to take 2 mentions here. There's 2 very special events locked in for next year, not even counting Laguna Seca, which is actually a track they have set up for next year, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
So once again, they'll be partnering with the R Days. For those that you are sleeping under a rock, that is the huge Nissan Skyline meet that it happens here in the states. That is going to be partnered with their event, and they'll be doing our own private Nissan only event and Spring Mountain. Let's see
I,
here. Also, with our days 2024, we are partnering with the SR20 West Coast Convention again and running our events together for round 6 at Button Willow. So that'll be right there, and you can see that on October 19th. So,
yeah.
as a heads up, the second half of the season might change a bit. It all is dependent on the completion of the second Button Willow track. We'll see if and when dates open up for it. But for now, this is the schedule that we've currently set into place.
That's a good setup. I do like that. And I'm looking at the dates here too. Is that I see somewhat of a summer break in between May and August, which late August at that too. So you get a good peak. You kind of stay out of the heat. I mean, you kind of get some more. Just as an enthusiast or a spectator, you kind of have a more enjoyable day with cooler weather. Also, the cars probably less will fail at that point when you got less heat like that.
Yeah, I will definitely. I mean, I will say one thing though, that some of the photos that came out of our days last year, and the Nissan Challenge, they're great. If you haven't had an opportunity to check those out, I highly recommend those. Because they had some great coverage, some great Instagram footage. And so if you aren't already friends with those guys, either through the Facebook, I would highly recommend jumping on that and then getting up to speed with that. Again, if you are in the California neck of the woods, you have really no excuse not to make this event or not to make any of these. They're really putting on a hell of an event at this point, and it's super opening. It's super accommodating for anybody who just walking off the street. They're very inviting. That there's not a lot of ego that's there at this location. Everybody's just trying to run and run at the end of the day. There's people that are competitive more than others, but at the end of the day, everybody's trying to make each other faster and always and very open to handing out a lot of information that is going to help you get faster and help you get the times that you're looking for. So
I think that if you're looking to catch the track racing bug, the Nissan Challenge Series, again, just go as a spectator, and again, with that welcoming vibe that they give you, and just don't be afraid to ask questions. They're going to get you in there. You're going to catch the bug. I think it's a very, very good place to start if you are curious about getting
yeah,
on track, no matter what car you have.
Edgar just jumped on with us today, the man himself. And Edgar, if there's anything that you want to say here in the comments or any dates as far as limitations for signing up or where people can sign up, go ahead and put that here in the comments and we'll make sure that people see that here in the next few minutes. But yeah, I mean, some of the photos that we saw from the R days was great, and it's such an amazing thing to be able to take the Nissan Challenge Series, the SR20 folks, um, and then of course the R Meet folks, and put those all together. That's just nothing but win right there. So
It's again an awesome series, though. I'm glad. I was actually fortunate to catch maybe the last half of one of their challenges when they actually partnered with Zcon this last summer. Um, Got to hang out and hang out with John and Edgar just for a bit, and but it was great to see the uh, the attendance, the participation of the event. Like I said, it's a win-win though, guys. It really is. It's a no-brainer. Just
Alan
getting out there.
LaFrance chimed in here, says, "I need to buy a black 178,000 mile 2.5 liter Altima and enter it into an unlimited class." But I will say that I mean I was going through it's always fun for me when I'm going through all the classes and then looking at all the people that are kind of participating and entering. I mean some of these are pretty awesome, like as far as the competitive level. Like I always get excited to see like the B13s, the B14s, because I just like seeing those cars run because I know that they're just going at 110% the entire time. And then of course I like seeing like the G37s and I like the oddballs, the underdog ones. I like
Oh yeah.
so but
Well, again, and it kind of comes back to me. Two things when I think about that, and you're right. When you, and this is just me though, but when I've got a car that I know is essentially disposable, like it's just an affordable car. Like I think of like again when we talk about like Sentras, get an old Sentra Spec V and just ring that sucker out. Have a lot of fun. It's an affordable car. It's a lot of fun, and I am a strong believer in it's much more entertaining to see a slow car be driven fast than a fast car be driven slow. When you find the right driver, no matter what car it is, it's going to be wildly entertaining to see that person drive, and it's going to make your day. So yes, just get out there, have some fun, and hopefully you've got the right car and the right mentality to just give it 100%. Don't hold back. Not only is it supposed to be fun and an experience, but to me, it's like it's a um, it's a like a primal expression being out on track. You know what I mean? Just you get
you're
out
gonna go
there.
primal on it. That's how you're gonna
Yeah,
you're
just
gonna you're gonna full
when you're out
Vanguard.
there. Yeah,
Rawr. Okay.
it's really. I swear. Yeah.
So Edgar chimed in here last on. He goes, "New season is definitely going to be a good one. We're waiting on a new track to open up as well, and we're definitely looking to run the new track once it's available. So yeah, it's going to be nothing but win." But that's everything for the Nissan Challenge. Of course, we'll keep you updated as we continue to move forward into the next year. Again, round one is going to be February 24th, so you got some time to plan your entries. That'll be at that'll be round one in February 24th,
Mhm.
and we're going to continue our coverage of the event, and we'll give you all the stats and results as it comes through. So
Exactly. All right, man. I've got the next one, which is the essentially the second and final recap to give you guys for our motorsports update, and I'm referring to Nissan's Formula E team. It's January, and the Formula E series for this year, season 10,
yeah,
is underway already. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some notes here. So round one happened just 5 days ago. January 13th was the first round of the Formula E season. This was actually happening at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez circuit in Mexico City. It is a 1.63-mile track and 19 turns. I have a nice little screenshot here. This is actually the same venue as the F1 track, but I think the layout is different though. Just kind of give you an idea of where this track is at. It's a one where you get to drive through the stadium as you're racing. It's a pretty cool setup actually. Um, so we do have our two drivers, which we will be rooting for the entire season. That is, of course, Sasha Fenestras. He is our second-year driver and essentially a fan favorite for the Formula E team. We also have Oliver Rowland. That name should sound familiar, though, because he is a former Nissan Formula E driver, making his way back to the team after a 2-year gap, essentially. So when I get into the recap of the week, it was only one round. As we know, sometimes the Formula E races are double headers. First round, not that. It was just one race with qualifying and practice and whatnot. Getting into qualifying, though, Sasha Fenestras was actually qualified he qualified ninth, just shy 1/10 of a second shy of being able to qualify into the duels segment of qualifying. The qualifying format for Formula E is sort of new. It's not as traditional as other racing series, though. But he just made it outside the dual segment, though. But he did begin the race in ninth position. Moving into Oliver Rowland and his results in qualifying, he actually caught traffic in his final qualifying run. And so for that reason, he was not able to get the time that he was expected to make. And for that reason, though, he did start the race in 20th position, essentially back of the grid at that point, though. Moving on to the next day, though, that is the race. Sasha Fenestras at the beginning of the race actually had a close call. As the lights went out, the car in front of him stalled. So he was very, very close to just completely destroying the front end. Luckily, he caught it, was able to avoid, and most of the race fairly uneventful, which was good. He, again, started in ninth. He did finish in 12th position. Oliver Rowland, again, starting from near the back, he actually had gained the most positions of any driver during the race. So the most overtakes was actually given to made by a Nissan driver. So again, starting in 20th place, finishing 11th. So he actually made it one position ahead of his teammate, which is a huge show of progress for Oliver as a driver. So again, our two drivers finishing the races, P11, P12. Both cars, unfortunately, are outside of the points, so there were no points to bring home to the team this past weekend. But there are a lot of adjustments being made for the next rounds. And of course, the next rounds we're talking about are rounds 2 and 3, happening January 26th and 27th. and it is actually happening at my favorite venue. Of course, we're talking about Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. Everybody's got a big case of Diriyah in a week and a half. I just love saying that. I don't know why. I think I know why. But looking forward to this, though. Again, we're just getting started into the Formula E season. There is still very much a lot to be hopeful for, and so we will be following the teams in the upcoming podcast episodes here. So that is Formula E. Um, any questions?
No questions. Let me see here. Let's see here.
Comments?
See here.
Spindle.
No, no, no. You're good. Like I said, it's a new racing series, so everything's going to be slowly unfolding. It's crazy how the same names kind of keep coming around full circle and everything else. So
Yeah,
with Rowland especially, so it's kind of funny.
it is. I mean, a lot of it's kind of like, well, but we kind of see similar things. Like, I mean, I guess other than Formula E, the other race series that I watch is Formula One, which you do see that quite often sometimes, where drivers they all stay in the same, the same 20 drivers, or it's essentially no changes. They're just changing seats in different teams every other year or so. So a lot of the former Nissan drivers are actually racing for a lot of our competitors. They're still in the series, just having moved to different teams. So it's a common thing. I think it's fairly common.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. I mean, that pretty much wraps up our motorsports news for the day. And we're going to go ahead and start stepping into our special segment here in just a few moments. Now, it's been a pretty crazy end of the year and of course the beginning of the year. For those that don't know, a lot happens during this time period as far as like motor shows, news that's happening from Nissan. But one of the biggest things that happened that I wanted to touch upon was actually the Tokyo Auto Salon. We actually just ended just a few days ago, that was happening in Japan. And I'll let Mike run the background here while we're doing that. So the
Sure.
Tokyo Auto, the Tokyo Auto Salon show is a just it's a, it's equivalently like SEMA, and for lack of a better word, it's the SEMA show for Japan. Now, this is supposedly larger than the SEMA show in that's here traditionally held here in Las Vegas, and would some would probably agree with that. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the numbers for this year's event, but from last year, it does look like every year, the show has increased in its numbers. Now, this is, of course, held in Japan. This show was started in 1983. The Tokyo Auto Salon is actually one of the top motor shows globally for modified and tuned cars. Now, this is an open to the public event, which is probably has a lot to do with their numbers, which is a little bit different with SEMA. It's traditionally you're going to be somebody in the scene, or you're going to be a person of note, or you're going to be a person of marketing or media substance to be able to go to SEMA. Now, again, and actually, I got the numbers right here. Attendance in 2023 was 330,000 people. Um,
God.
and apparently this year was much larger. This is actually supposedly one of the biggest shows that has happened with the Tokyo Auto Salon to date. Now, for you guys who would like to know more, we're going to go ahead and post a link where you can check it out before. But what's funny is I usually watch this on like Speed Hunters when it drops because I'm looking for like amazing photos, and it's never done in like one or two parts. The show is so massive, just like SEMA. It's usually done between part 4, 5, 6, and you can check out Speed Hunters, and they'll have some great coverage of the event. Usually, when me and Mike are checking out all the notes from this, we're usually kind of running through and trying to I spy the Nissans in it. So we're usually trying to hunt for wherever we're finding the Nissans. And apparently, this year was no shortage of the new Z. So apparently, the new Z, just like years before, was the card to see in all the booths. I think companies like Grady, Top Secret, and a few others actually had cars. Craft Sports were or had cars to show off at their location. And yeah, I mean, if you have an opportunity, I would go through some of the speed hunters. Um,
There you
excuse me,
go.
the speed hunter links and check out some of the cars. As you can see here, I mean, just amazing vehicles that are just modified to another level. So
I really saw a few that I really like, and I'm hoping it is here on the Speed Hunters site, which is what we're sharing right now, though. But I one of the big draws I saw was a body kit for the new Z, and it was on from Liberty Walk, and
ah,
of course now we know their kits, their body kits, even on previous cars, the GTR, for example, just being of this epic scale, just amazing quality. It's this a silhouette and exaggerated, fender wells and
yeah,
that's a good. And I'm saying that in
oversized
a good
fender
way.
flares. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a thing. I mean, it really is.
it's a style that I like. I mean, I've come to like it over the years. They've done a new body kit for the Z. I'm trying to find it here fast
No,
enough here. I think I have it here
no.
actually. But
Edgar actually chimed in here with a good piece of information. He goes, definitely more people this year um, with all the increased travel to Japan now that restrictions have lightened up. But yeah, that's actually a good point. I remember that. I saw that Varus one. That was nice.
that was a thing too. And I'm noticing so many different options of rear wing spoiler too. If you
Oh yeah.
look at this one here. It's a very subtle kind of ducktail sort of flare wing. That you've got another one here. I think it was the Varus. It is. See how you have this very pronounced the stanchions up top and then the
Mhm.
bar. It comes down to style, preference, and personal taste
You
for
know what's
how you
crazy
want to
is
express your
remember
taste.
back in the day when before speed hunters existed, we'd have to buy the Up Rev magazine, and we'd have to open that book up, and then you would literally go and just see all the cars, all the modifications for your car.
Yeah.
And then they would just show all the new models and the kits that were available for the market. Nowadays it's like it's all speed hunters and websites. That's insane. Oh, I see what you got there.
What a time to be alive, right? No, I was
What
playing.
a time to be. That's
What?
the Veal side one, that orange one. Yeah, that's been
The,
around for a minute and it still looks good.
yep. There was a lot of items that I saw that I could probably list for you. The uh, advancements that they're making in terms of style. I have seen carbon fiber door handles for the new Z. That was pretty
Okay,
cool.
makes
This
sense.
is this is the spoiler I'm talking to you about. Look how pronounced that
The duck
ducktail
bill.
spoiler, that
Yeah,
duckbill,
or
uh,
ducktail. Yeah.
ducktail spoiler. I mean, a lot of it's reminiscent. Of course, we know the new Z has that retro styling, and I'm thinking about the old, uh, you might even say early '80s Z with that very pronounced, very similar spoiler though. But you see this one,
You know
it
what I
kind of
like
gives me
too?
hints of
They
that.
took the katana and they blocked it out and they
Yeah,
kind of took it into the body line. I kind of like
yeah,
it. It's different.
yeah.
Like they just
That's
made a
true.
larger roof line,
And I see another one too, which is I see a more pronounced nose, like a G nose,
like a
essentially.
Genos. Yeah, I can see
So
that too as well.
I see, and I think even Nissan has a G nose version coming up fairly soon, if not already. And I think we're going to see a lot more of those in the aftermarket because it is a good touch. It looks very nice, uh, tasteful. Again, it has that historic kind of reference, which a lot of people like. Um, hoods, or another one too. The type of venting on the hoods. Of course, you have carbon fiber as well, and other types. Uh, uh, Again, every aspect of styling and customization. I think the new Z car was front and center with a majority of these mods because this is essentially the most recent Nissan offering for aftermarket get their hands on. And it's been enough time. It's been about, was it now, just it's over 2 years now since the new Zs have kind of trickled out. And so it's been enough time for a lot of good companies to pump out a quality product. And this was the great place to share that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nuts that that Nissan has such good branding at the event. I mean, we were talking about this when the Z was coming out. It's almost like they made the Z available to a lot of these vendors early on to give them an opportunity to produce parts for the market early on. So when
Oh,
they hit the auto show like this, it came hard, and I think
it,
they learned that from years past. With the 350Z and the 370Z, they're not dumb. They were super smart about it, and they knew it's a huge tuner car that was going to be available. I mean, it's a staple of the tuner market, and for them to make it available as much as they did to all these manufacturers, or these vendors, I should say, it's good. It's a
I,
good
I
thing.
I think it's a pretty smart move. Yes,
Of
you're
course, they
right.
they
I
were all
mean,
scrambling to grab it too, so it is what it is.
there was a lot of I'm sure a lot of I don't know what you say. Just we know that a lot of the aftermarket was just clawing for this though, but Nissan did a very cool thing because we do know examples where certain manufacturers were able to get their hands on the new Z before it was even released to dealers. And it might have been for a few hours, or who knows how long, but
Yeah,
but it
I
was
heard
enough
that.
time to get that
I
head
heard
start.
with limited numbers of the vehicle, it was definitely given to a lot of um, vendors, if you will, for a certain time period. They're like, "Hey, you're gonna have it for 2 weeks. To get your scanning guns out and start figuring out what you're gonna do." And
Yep,
yeah,
get
it
your
was kind of
data
crazy.
and start running with it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
there's two things I did see here too. Is that of course I do see. I believe this looks sort of like air to air intercoolers, which is sort of like what we see with the GT4 car. We're seeing this
The
conversion
old cold
now.
air.
I'm curious to see what performance is like for it. I think it would be comparable for sure. I was looking at, and this is just me doing my research for the show. I was doing research on the Tokyo Auto Salon, just as in general, and they one of the notes they did say was the one of the features of Tokyo Auto Salon is the presence of what they call booth babes, and I was like,
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. And then I start looking at as we're scrolling through this video, through these pictures here, like, okay, that's one there, okay, that's another one. And I
Raj
was like,
Queens.
Jesus Christ, like, yeah, that's kind of like Umbrella Girls used to be. I
It's
mean, I don't
funny if
know.
you go back and you what I mean. There was a thing. It was for a time period. There was import DVDs, and I have a pretty vast collection of those because before I ever went to Japan, that's how I saw the Tokyo Auto Show. Because all they ever really gave you was like car, girl, car, girl,
There was a
car,
format,
girl.
yeah, that
You
wasn't
know,
an accident, yeah.
a little kid eating a piece of cotton candy, car, girl, four. That was it, and that was the whole show. Like it was just a whirlwind, and they had these like booth babes, and then garage queens, and yeah, and it's like, and some of these girls like they get fame just like the import world. We had a run of those where we had tuner girls that were in magazines that became models that became partially famous. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely a thing.
it
So,
is true. It's true, man. Yeah,
but I would highly recommend going and checking out the old DVDs if you were into any of those things. So yeah, and then but Speed Hunter does a great job with coverage on a lot of the event. So
they do. They do.
so
I'm glad that
um
you mentioned it. Yeah,
yeah. So now Nissan, we of course we went pretty heavy with the Z's here, but Nissan also dropped. From what I can tell here, it looked like they had some Aria news as well, right?
they did. They did. So what I've learned here is that not only is the Tokyo Auto Salon an opportunity for the aftermarket debut and sharing of new product, but it is often a site where automotive manufacturers will reveal. It's a perfect opportunity to reveal new product line. So actually, it's pretty big for Nissan. The Nissan actually had a press conference at the convention center, which the Tokyo Auto Salon is held, and it was about a 30-minute presentation in which Nissan has revealed that the Aria EV crossover is getting the Nismo treatment. This is the first time that an EV under the Nissan catalog is getting the Nismo treatment here. So a lot of good information, and I'll share a few in a minute. Just a few high points though. Uh, in terms of power, we're looking at about a 10% increase in power output. That's roughly about 40 horses through the wheel, I believe. Um, the Nismo Aria is actually going to be all-wheel drive powered, and it's powered by Nissan's e-Force technology, which you see that on a lot of the premium versions as well, though. But it does have refined tuning, and it's got retuned chassis dynamics. So a lot of things having to do with the tune of the car, which essentially is a signature of what Nismo is. A lot of other signatures that you will see in the Nismo Aria is, of course, Nismo styling when it comes to aerodynamics. You've got, of course, you see the color that you see here. You see the same scheme on the Nismo Z and Nismo GTR this year. And then also you got the interior treatment. You've got some pretty choice looking seats for one. And then you've also got the red highlights being a common theme inside. So inside, I don't know if there's very many pictures in this particular article though, but there you go. That's a nice picture. Some nice seating. You've got some nice styling. Nissan is promoting this as being, of course, the performance version of the Aria, having these Nismo signatures, but still being a luxury vehicle, EV. A new feature. Again, this is the first time that Nissan and Nismo have offered this. It's really the first time they could have ever offered it, which is with the Nismo option. There's an option for an added sound when you drive this particular vehicle. And they're saying that the sound is evocative of Formula E racing. So if you ever watch anything on YouTube or anything, and you see those Formula E races, you hear that that winding up noise, and it's sort of indicative of what a performance EV sounds like. You're going to get a similar noise with the Nismo Aria EV. So that's sort of innovative, a first for this vehicle and for Nismo. I will say though, there is one thing that is confusing to me, and according to what I've read, there are two variations of the Nismo Aria EV. Two variations. They're calling this the B6 version and the B9 version. Now, each of them have their own horsepower and their own torque ratings, different size batteries. But I don't know about you, Miles, but this is the first time I've seen two variations of EV. It's always been just Nismo. Just you know it when you see it. There's no compromise or no change. But now there's, for the EV versions of Nismo, there's two different subsets of Nismo. So it's a first. I'm still struggling to understand it. Again, I do see the difference in power. I mean, you are getting, again, close to 40 horses over what you might get out of a base or a premium Aria. But it's still something fairly new. Have you had a chance to take a look at this? Anything for yourself?
I like the styling cues. I mean, it's definitely updated. You know me, I always like the red accents on some of the Nismo stuff, and I like the rocker and the styling and everything with the arrow. But you know, I, I always kind of have to see it in person. But I will say that I like the detail. It seems like that's like a trend that's kind of moving forward. So with some of the Nismo stuff. So
I know me in the past, me and you have chatted about there have been certain Nissan edition of vehicles, Nismo or not, or just special edition. This is called it special edition vehicles, where, and especially maybe in the early 2000s, where all it was a few extra decals as opposed to actual performance difference. Um, any thoughts on that? I mean, I think in terms of power, I mean, if you're getting an extra 40 horses as opposed to any other, let's just say the Nismo Z, you got actually, I want to say less than 40 horses with the new Z. So you're actually seeing a pretty good bump in power, though. Um, I think it's a pretty good jump, though. Honestly, I do have last bit of information on this. Though they're saying that the schedule for the launch of this vehicle in Japan will be this spring, and that the price has not yet been announced. Neither has it been announced whether it will be available in the U.S. I have a pretty strong feeling that it will be, though. Um, Again, no mention on price, though, but I could say that it's going to be in the high 60s. That's my prediction. When you look at the other offerings, the current offerings of the Aria, the most decked out version is about 62,000. So to get the Nismo, of course, it's got to be a little bit more than that. So I'm going to say, you know, upper 60s. My guess, though.
All right.
We'll see, though.
Okay.
That's everything I got, buddy.
Well, I did want to give one shout out or a little, I try to give you guys a little piece of information of things you should be checking out. And as you know, I have a Motor Trend subscription and I absolutely love it. So I have a tendency to kind of put it on while I do my normal job all day long. And a little piece of Nissan news kind of just showed up unexpectedly while I was running through the newest shows on Motor Trend, and this one actually came out of a new show that's new to Motor Trend called Custom Carolina, and it actually showed the Safari Rally Z that was featured by Nissan at the SEMA show being put together. Now,
Hmm.
again, this is part of my things you should be checking out. But if you don't already have a Motor Trend subscription, like Mike doesn't have for one
Not
weird
yet.
reason,
Nah, I've procrastinated.
he's still planning to steal my subscription. We'll see how that goes.
You haven't shared the
But
codes yet, bro.
I'm not going to give you my codes. It's $1 a month, homie. I was like
Ah,
for like 6 months, and then after that, it's like $5. I mean,
it's
come
not too
on
bad.
now,
Yeah, I need to
Jesus.
get
Quit
crowbar and
stealing your
open up that
neighbor's
hole.
newspaper. Just go and buy it. It's all right. Are you
Yeah.
done with that? All right. But getting back to the episode again, this is on the latest episode of Custom Carolina, where they actually Nissan comes to them to get the Safari Z actually began here. Now I'm gonna post a couple photos here as I've saved them to my background. And here you can see them starting to modify the vehicle. Again, they are taking a new Z and modifying that vehicle to have a higher travel stance by about 2 inches, custom suspension from KW. And then, of course, they're putting in as much dedication to they can as uh, to the original S30 rally car that it deserves, and they do a really good job with it. I mean, we talked about this before when the SEMA pictures of that car came out. Me and Mike talked about that on a previous episode. It took them a while to get this show out to available for the market. I wish it would have dropped a little bit closer to SEMA, but needless to say, it dropped here within the last few days, and I still loved it. Here in the background, they're modifying the tire holder placement and the roll bar. They're getting them to work conjunctively
Hmm.
in the back area. And they did a really good job with piecing it all together. As you can see behind me, they added in the lighting situation. And then, of course, they went through and added little lights just above where the mirrors are as the spotlights. They did their own variation of that too, as well. And then, of course, this vehicle with Carl Phillips, who's the gentleman in the hat with Nissan North America, and then of course Tommy Pike, who's the owner of Tommy Pike Customs, um, who's on the who's the host of the show, the Custom Carolina. He's right here to my left. And again, I mean, they took it from here, your stock Z, and then we're able to modify this vehicle all the way through to what we see here today. And they did such a great job with all the small details. Here's the vehicle running on the streets before
Mhm.
they package it up and send it out to SEMA. But again, I just thought it was a cool little thing. If you want to go back and check it out, it's worth a good little bit of time of your day to watch it. It's interesting to kind of see how what they put together. So
Nice, nice, man. Yeah, I do. That car making a splash at SEMA, um, for its tribute to the S30, like you mentioned. It's a nice touch. It's really cool. So is it like a 30-minute show? Is it an hour? Like
about 30, 45 minutes, roughly around there from
that's a good
what I
amount. That's a good
remember. I
amount.
mean, you don't get commercials. So you just kind of rent it. Once you have the subscription, you just it feeds you all the new stuff for the week. And like I said, I thought it was pretty damn cool. And there's enough Nissan little tidbits that kind of drop in. Plus, you get a whole bunch of old shows that you really like if you want to watch the old JDM Legends shows. They're on there too as well. They're not making
Mhm.
anything new, but you can go back and watch some of the old shows. There's a lot of Nissan stuff on there. Plus, there's like weird other stuff like Nopi Nationals. Remember those when they used to be a thing? They bought all the rights to those and like some of the Red Line TV stuff. It's all on there. So
Wow.
if you're truly an old tuner nerd and you like watching some of the old stuff, what was it like back in the day when people were still going to raves and nose piercings and stuff like that? They do kind of coverage on those events like the tuner events as well if you know how
Hmm.
to dig and look for them. So I don't know, just some cool stuff that I saw. But getting back to this, Custom Carolinas, it's the newest episode. Again, you can check out how they put together the Safari Rally Z.
Awesome, dude. Good find. Good find. I do need to just cough up the $5,
Yeah,
and
cough up the $5.
it's that simple, isn't it? Yeah. There's so much to it. I need to go ahead and do it, man.
All right.
God.
And with that being said, that's going to be pretty much a wrap on the show here for today. This is our first episode back from 2024. Again, let me make sure we went through the comments. Just wanted to give a shout out to everybody for being on with us tonight. I want to give a shout
Yeah.
out for
Thank you.
Alan from with SPL being on with us tonight. And yes, Alan, we do appreciate you getting your new Haas dual spindle tool.
I
I saw
saw
on your
that.
post update, and I remember Farah was talking about him getting that new tool, and I'm sure it's going to cut down on all your production time, so you can have tons of available parts ready for your customers. As always, we are a huge sponsor for SPL. We thank them for all their support and continued support for the show. And then, of course, thanks to the Nissan Challenge for being on with us here tonight. And of course, everybody else for being on with us here tonight as well. And Mike, that's about all I got. You got anything else?
As far as us guys here, though, of course, we are trying to grow our Instagram page and our YouTube page. If you can, if you are on either of those social media channels, type in Nissan Nerd in the search bar. Find us, press like, press subscribe, get the notifications because not only are we doing these shows live, which you'll can find and watch at any time, but we also break up these episodes into essentially individual bite-size, a little bit more bite-size segments, so you can actually enjoy them, perhaps at a lunch break or in between shifts or something like that. So I think it's a pretty good bonus. So, and of course, we're really trying to grow these two channels. So please, if you do, um, just add us, and we have more content being planned for you guys. So, of course, you can find us if you want to find us. Contact us. There is, of course, messaging through Instagram, or if you're old fashioned, you can go to info@nissannerd.com. We check that page fairly often here. That email. Yeah, that's everything I've got, man. How about you?
Yeah, that's everything. Let's let these poor people go for the night. But yeah, thanks for everybody being on with us here tonight. Again, thank you. Next episode we'll be doing is about 2 weeks. We're going to be pretty rhythmic with the episodes as they drop from the future. Until then, as always, get in your garage and make something cool.
And just remember, if your car stops smoking, you're probably out of oil. I'm going to go ahead and just say it. So check your oil level, especially you
That's
350Z
your
guys.
catchphrase.
You know who you are. Yeah, yeah. All right. If you got it, Miles, what do you got left? Got anything?
I got a little something.
That's your
All right.
NyQuil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got my NyQuil in here. My scissor.
All
All
right,
right.
guys. Thanks again for being with us, guys. We'll go ahead and talk to you guys soon. Until then, again, get in your garage, guys. Let's have some fun.
Go. Uh.